Before we get started here, I just want to do a quick description. I am a white male. I've got long hair, about shoulder length, curly hair, and I am wearing a blue t-shirt today. And if my hand movements get crazy, I have a hair tie on my wrist. I think it's red today. Got some lights behind me in a kind of half-finished studio space that has some sound panels up on the wall. More to come on that because I had to order a bunch and I'm waiting for those to get here. Those should be here tomorrow, so should be able to get those put up soon. At least that's the idea. Hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to talk about something that I kind of had this weird moment today that brought this back for me. And what I want to talk about is I'm kind of sick of sitting up front. And there's a point to this, and I'm not sure how well I'm going to be able to articulate it. This isn't scripted like some of my other videos on accessibility has been, but what I wanted to talk about is that essentially when I was younger, specifically when I was in elementary school, so I went to elementary school in the early 2000s, and we were right at this precipice between the chalkboard era of education, which, my parents and grandparents and, so forth have gone through, and the smart board app, internet modernized version of education that the students that I worked with for a number of years completed or were involved in. And what I mean by that is when I was really little, so I think, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I would say through somewhere around there, second or third grade, we had this hybrid between, we get the chalkboard at the front of the room and an overhead projector. So essentially it was a projector that had a flat surface, and I believe this works with mirrors, and it kind of takes what's being written on the board and projects it onto a screen on the wall. And so a teacher could use these clear plastic sheets of paper and write down, for example, a math problem. And then that math problem would get projected onto the screen on the wall. And I never had enough vision to see that, ever. I could see that there was some, scribbles, some color on the board, but I could never see detail. Point being, I was always placed at the front of the classroom because it was thought that that would give me the best chance to use the vision that I did have in order to get something out of that experience. And so for most of my childhood, I was always placed in the front of the room, and I just kind of got used to it. And I think you do just kind of get used to it, to be honest, because it's just something that becomes, in the same way that when you get an assigned seat in school and eventually you just get used to sitting in the same spot, right? My assigned seat was just always going to be usually on the front right side of the classroom, because that's where my left, more usable eye would come in handy. And I never questioned it. I didn't like some of the other things that I had to deal with in terms of being, treated differently, or my perception as a child of being treated differently because I was disabled. So being pulled out of class for separate, lessons, having to do different classes in orientation, mobility, or Braille when my class was doing, other things. And I don't think I didn't always like it, but it was just the way that I, went to school. And so I think I did, for the most part, get used to that. And I had this moment today at my job because I walked into a training where I know that the system that we currently have is really inaccessible for me. So for example, we have a screen at the front of the room. I believe it's a TV, and that TV showcases a PowerPoint full of slides that I can't read, as well as, any videos or supplemental materials, that we watch as part of training. And we also, at the front of the room, have a presenter, and there's a camera that, you participate virtually, with the camera. So I can't really use that. I just kind of hope that if I'm speaking, the camera does its magic and picks me up and we move on. But I went automatically to the front table that I could get to, and just sat down, and I was like annoyed because, you know, it's training. I'd rather go home. I'm tired, and I just didn't even think about it. And I don't know if the coworker who did this watches these videos, but if you did, I appreciate you for what I'm about to talk about. But I had a coworker, and she came up to me and she said, "Hey, do you need help today with the training? I'm happy if you want to come back and sit with me. I'm happy to help you." And two things. The piece I neglected to mention is that when we do these trainings, the mix of, you know, old technology and new technology rears its head again, because we have physical pieces of paper that have these competency tests on them. So, you know, name and date, and that you attended the training, and then it'll have some things. Sometimes it's just, hey, sign that you know, were part of this training. And then sometimes there's like a quiz, you know, with like 5 or 10 questions on it that's supposed to be a supplemental to the training. So as you're going through, you just mark down, like filling out a worksheet when you're in school. And I've brought up a lot of different times and a lot of different ways that, like, I need a way to access these, because I'm basically at the mercy of my coworkers to help me out. And every single time, we've done these once a month, and I've been there for, I want to say 9 months at this point. So on, you know, almost 10 separate occasions, somebody has stepped up to help me, which speaks a lot to my coworkers, to the culture that we build as a company that works with people with disabilities. And I appreciate that. I don't want to minimize that. But here's my counterpoint, and that is that everyone else walks into the room, picks up their test, sits down at their table, watches the PowerPoint, fills the test out absentmindedly, and goes home. Now, I have to go make sure I grab the right pieces of paper, which I have to have someone help me figure out. Someone's got to help me fill out, you know, my name and the date and that sort of thing. I have to listen to the entire presentation, usually without having any idea what the questions on said piece of paper are. Find someone at the end who's willing to take time after everyone else has gone home to help me. They read me the questions. I hope I can remember back to the training and complete them. And I've had help, you know, doing that if I forget something or whatever. But as I've talked about in other videos, that takes a lot of time and steps and like thought, and it works. Yes. Is it functional? Yes. But as disabled people, we shouldn't have to be so grateful for the bare minimum. And I found this creator. I don't know what else she has, you know, profiles on, other than I found her through the Facebook Reels or Shorts. And her name is Chronically Jenny. And she made this short, or this reel, and it was like 5 things that disabled people are expected to do that non-disabled people are not expected to do, or something like that. And one of them was being grateful for like the lowest bar, or, you know, being expected to be grateful for the most minimal accommodation that there is. And I had this moment today when my coworker was like, "Hey, do you want to come and sit back with me?" And my reflexive response was, "Oh, I can, you know, if you want to do it up here, that's okay. I can sit here." And instinctually, like, I don't want to, you know, rock the boat. I don't want this to be complicated. If you're willing to help me, you're already doing something extra. I don't want to make that work. And she goes, "No, like, I'm happy to, you know, we have a table right back here. I can, you know, grab my coffee or whatever I had going and help me relocate." And what's funny is this coworker also has a disability. And so I think that the cognizance was there where it may not be for other people, but I really appreciated that in the moment, because I'm sick of having to sit up front and advocate for myself and take initiative all the time, constantly, for everything, because it's exhausting. And when somebody recognizes that, you can hear my heater going on behind me, or behind you, in front of me. It was good, and it shows me that we have so much left to do, like in society, but also like in my workplace specifically, that, you know, also is just expected of me to carry, you know, these things and to advocate for them. I had to also kind of speak up for another set of trainings that were completely inaccessible, and I'm in the process of getting assistance with that, but that requires, again, I have to send some emails and get in touch with some folks and lay out what the problem is. There shouldn't be a problem. There shouldn't be an issue for me, especially as a disabled person working for a company that works with disabled adults. Our stuff should just be accessible. That's just true. And I think I'm sick of sitting in the front is I'm sick of having to take point on things that shouldn't be problems. And I'm grateful to have a job, and I'm grateful that my job has been accommodating, and I don't want to detract from that. But that does not mean that it's okay for things to be as inaccessible as they are just because I should be happy I have a job. And I think I'm starting to realize more and more that for me to get what I need to out of these systems, I need to be stronger in speaking up and calling out when things aren't accessible, but also my skill set in identifying these problems, in, trying to bring that voice of reason or change to an organization is something that shouldn't just come for free. And I am doing it for free right now. And it's exhausting because it's another skill set. It's things that I'm having to do throughout my day to get us to, level 0, right? I have to get us to the tutorial. I'm not getting us from level 5 to 6. I'm getting us to the opening credit scene and getting to the tutorial of the game so that they learn how to play correctly. I don't want to have to do that all the time. That's my complaining. I'm working on, kind of behind the scenes, I have the official steps that I needed to take to launch something new. The official stuff is done. I now need to, pending probably a couple of paychecks and some other projects we're trying to do on our house and things, I need to get a website going, and that's all I'm going to say for now. But I am putting something together that will allow me another way to navigate these types of things. And if you want to see what that is, please subscribe, follow me. We're knocking on almost 400 people who have stayed along for this madness. So I hope this made sense. And I know that some of you have experienced things that are similar in your school, work, personal lives. And I don't think we have candid and open conversations enough. And so I would rather put this out being a little bit less scripted or formal or not knowing exactly what I need to say than to put off saying something when I've had a day like this. So thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will talk to you all soon. Peace.